Metal band Megadeth throughout their career have had over half a dozen drummers during their nearly 40-year run. But half of those drummers would pass away under really sad or in some cases shocking circumstances, and that's what we're going to explore in today's video. In 2023, it was announced that Lee Rauch, Megadeth's original drummer, had passed away at the age of 58. The death would be announced by his brother Chris, writing, "Today is a very sad day. We lost my brother William Lee Rauch. Lee was a very strong man of faith, so I know he is with God now. He was an awesome drummer who helped launch one of the biggest metal names in history by being the first drummer for Megadeth, playing alongside Dave Mustaine, Kerry and David Ellifson. His brother would reveal that Lee continued to play drums in his later life, playing for the church. Mustaine would be asked about Lee, telling an interviewer in 2004, "I don't know, he wasn't necessarily an original Megadeth drummer. He was a guy that we really liked. And then one day sitting on the steps of Bill Cordero's house when David Ellifson and I were squatting, we just kind of met this kid, went to his house, and infiltrated his bedroom, and never left for a couple months. Lee was telling us how he had given his soul to Satan. I was like, I'm out of here." It was originally reported that Rauch would appear on the group's first demo, 1984's Last Rites, which was made up of 3 songs. But due to internal conflict, Rauch left the band and was replaced by Gar Samuelson. After leaving the group, he would go on to perform with Dark Angel and War God, but following his death, bassist David Ellifson would take to social media to clarify a long-held belief about Rauch, writing, "However, there is some misinformation about the Last Rites demo. Lee never did any studio recordings with the band. The Last Rites demo that is out there on the web was recorded 100% by his successor, our fallen brother Gar Samuelson on drums. That 3-song demo was recorded as a 3-piece with me, Dave, and Gar in the summer of '84. New York jazz-loving drummer Gar Samuelson would be asked to join Megadeth in the summer of '84, and guitarist Chris Poland would also be added to the lineup. Bandleader Dave Mustaine would refer to this lineup as the first real lineup of the band. Mustaine would credit Samuelson as giving Megadeth a sound that no other metal band could replicate, telling Brave Words, "Gar Samuelson, being a jazz drummer, gave our playing a super cool element that none of the other metal bands had. It was great to be able to hold that over everybody else's head because no one else could figure out what we were doing. We had energy, starts and stops, and so many gear shifts, and that's all attributed to the jazz element, which gave the music all these crazy dynamics that you would never get in a normal rock band's drum track." But internal problems led to Samuelson's time being cut short, as he would only play on the band's first 2 studio albums and toured on both records as well. By 1987, he'd be fired from the band due to his escalating drug addiction, after he continued to pawn the band's equipment for drug money, along with guitarist Chris Poland. Mustaine would write in the book Rust in Peace, "Often when we would go into a new city, Gar would disappear. He would head over to the unsavory side of town to find heroin. Sometimes he would come back late, but he always managed to score. That's how Chuck Baylor landed the job." But Chuck Baylor's time in the band would be cut short by 1989, as he was suffering from a cocaine addiction, and he would give up his place in Megadeth to his own drum tech, Nick Menza. After leaving Megadeth, Samuelson would relocate to Orange City, Florida, renting a farm and converting a barn into a studio along with his brother and guitarist Stu. They would start a band named Fatal Opera, and he would play in the group until his death in 1999 at the age of 41. His cause of death would be liver failure, thought to be from years of drug abuse. The band's 2002 reissue of their debut album would be dedicated to Samuelson. Mustaine would recall in 2022 that not saying goodbye to Gar was one of his biggest regrets, recalling running into him on tour after he was fired from the group, saying, "I went to Florida one time and I saw Gar and he looked really different, and not in a good way. His hair was super long and his eyes were really sunken. He ended up dying from liver failure. I wish I would have known and been able to talk to him a little bit more. It was always, hey, I'll call you in a couple days, and you don't. So that's a regret for me." Here's the members of Megadeth discussing his passing.
When Gar started to get sick, I went down to visit him, and like a week later, he had passed away on Bastille Day.
Dave called me up and told me, he said, "Gar's dead." And for a minute, I was just I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps just now even talking about it, just remembering it.
I pretty much came to the conclusion that the music world had lost a true giant.
Drummer Nick Menza began his professional career at the age of 18, and he would play in a series of groups including Rhodes, who was fronted by Randy Rhodes' brother. Menza would appear on 4 Megadeth albums, with 1997's Cryptic Writings being his last. The following year, while out on tour to promote the record, Menza learned of a tumor in his knee. He required surgery to remove it, and thankfully for him, it was benign. According to Menza, while he was in the hospital recovering from surgery, he would recall Mustaine calling him to let him know that he was fired from the band. Bassist David Ellifson would tell Metal Hammer why Menza was fired, recalling, "It's funny, Nick has been and still is the most hailed and beloved member of the Megadeth legacy. Playing drums is hard, playing drums in Megadeth is even harder, and it beats the out of you. Nick put in a lot of good years with us, but by 1998, when he got fired, he was struggling to do the gig." Following his firing, Menza turned his attention to raising his 2 kids and took up woodworking. It was during this time Menza was still involved in music, putting out a single album under the moniker Menza, and play with the jazz fusion group called Ohm. In 2014, there were rumblings that the Rust in Peace lineup of Megadeth would be reuniting and recording new material and touring. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. At this point in time, both Menza and guitarist Marty Friedman would claim that the reunion fell apart due to money. In May of 2016, Menza was playing a gig with his band Ohm, who was 3 songs into a semi-regular set at the Baked Potato in Studio City when the drummer collapsed on stage. Friend J. Marshall Craig would tell the Associated Press the friends and audience members rendered aid while paramedics were called, but they were unsuccessful. He would be pronounced dead upon his arrival at the hospital, and he would pass away at the young age of 51. It was initially speculated that at the time Menza's death may have been drug-related, but it would be confirmed by an autopsy his death was due to a massive heart attack. It was reported at the time of his death that he'd been sober for about 8 years. Following his death, Dave Mustaine would pay his respects to the departed drummer at a Megadeth show the following day. Mustaine would dedicate the song Trust to him and ask the audience members to take a few moments of silence. Mustaine would also publish an online post praising Menza and would state that the band was looking into the feasibility of doing a benefit show with past and present members invited to take part, but the benefit show never seemed to happen. Ellifson would look back and reveal the silver lining in Menza's death, saying, "I think Nick died happy on stage playing his drums. He used to say, 'When I die, I hope I die on stage playing drums.' He used to joke about that. That's so Nick Menza, and he did. When I heard it, as sad and shocking as it was, I went, that son of a bitch got to go out the way he wanted." In 2023, during a show in Tokyo, Mustaine would reveal that Megadeth's song Angry Again, which was found on the Last Action Hero soundtrack, which came out in 1993, was inspired by a dream he had about Menza, as he revealed here.
So we're going to focus on this show, and this next song right now was actually a dream that I had about Nick Menza. Whoa! I'm sure Nick is up in heaven right now and wishing he was down here with us. But, we will honor him. This song's called Angry Again.
That concludes today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll Your Stories. Take care.